invitations were out, the preparations were over, the banquet is ready. The follow-up is personal, and the king's servants cry, "Come." This isn't a call for duty. This is an invitation to what should be a really happy and joyous time. It's a wedding feast. However, as we've heard, the response is sadly one of rejection. Now, of course, this is a parable, and I don't know whether you understand where Jesus was aiming the parable at, but this parable of Jesus has an immediate application. Matthew places it in the last week of Jesus' life. The son, the bridegroom, will soon be, as we know, rejected, and he will be brutally killed. The scribes and Pharisees, those initially chosen, the people of Israel initially chosen, have disregarded the invitation to his kingdom. And the messengers, the servants that he sent out for the invite, the prophets, by and large, most of them were mistreated or killed. So that's what Jesus was driving at. Being good old Jewish boys, they would have known the Hebrew scriptures, and maybe they would have twigged that indirectly or directly Jesus was getting at them. Verse 7, with its armies and the burning of a city, seems strangely out of kilter and an overreaction at the least, but this is Jesus being somewhat prophetic about what would happen. Matthew is no doubt recalling the sacking and burning of Jerusalem by the Roman army just a few years later in AD 70. Is there also a universal application to this old story? Can it speak to us trying to make sense out of life in the 21st century? I think it can. It's easy for us in our busy schedules to regard or disregard an unsolicited invitation as an intrusion. In an age of consumerism, we hear more about rights than privileges, and we can, and often do, control our choices. We can turn others on or off with our remote control. If you have Sky, you've got the on-off button, or Virgin or whatever. You've got the on-off button on your radio. You can surf the internet, but you can decide what you want to read and do whatever you want. Facebook, you can decide to friend or unfriend. The choice is with us. No one has a claim on us. It is our choice what we do. When God said, "Seek ye first," we respond with, often, in this day and age, with, "Let me first." Those invited make light of the call to come to the banquet. We've read that one went to his farm, another to his business. They are ordinary people going about their ordinary business, and it happens every day. But don't miss the point. These are responsible, busy people in the everyday working world, whether you're working at home or not. They are simply so consumed with the doing of their tightly prescribed schedules that nothing can break through, not even, it seems, God. And that goes for the vast majority of this land, in effect. The servants may well have been doing good things on the farm and at their business, but in their busyness, they missed the banquet. If one is full of doing other stuff, an invitation to a feast is not good news. No wonder Jesus said in his Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness' sake, for they shall be satisfied." When we wade in shallow waters, when we understand sin only in terms, we wade in shallow waters when we understand sin in only terms of wrongdoing. For most decent, law-abiding people, I think it's manifested in waste, of wasting our true potential. as settling for good by declining an invitation to be the best. Now, when I was growing up, I'd always had an interest in God, but didn't know how to communicate with God, even though I was brought up a Catholic. So I suppose I could sense there was an invitation somewhere, but I didn't know how to go about responding to that invitation as I was growing up. When I went to university, at Sheffield University, there were plenty of people there who I met and became friends with, who gave me the invite to come to the wedding feast, the banquet, to come and meet with the King, Jesus. But for 2.5 years, I declined that invitation. I was much like the people in this particular parable. The invitation was there, had been offered, but I consistently said no, 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 no. Until in the end, I began to see and make sense of what the invitation was all about. And then that's when I responded to the invitation. I can't say it was a happy response, but nevertheless I did respond to that invitation. At the end of that particular parable, there's something that's a bit weird and anticlimactic. The king arrives at the banquet, greets his guests, and notices that one of them isn't wearing a wedding garment. And when asked why, the individual is speechless. And so the host forcibly evicts and throws him into outer darkness. We're never told why the man didn't observe the dress code. Was he a latecomer? Did he have time to change his clothes? We don't know. Why would a king gracious enough to invite him in the first place turn round and then rudely evict him from the reception? The dramatic turn in the parable has little to do with the dress code. Someone made light of the invitation by staying away, but this man was making light of the invitation after he'd come. God's gracious invitation always comes to us as we are, but we need to come not as we were. And that's how I responded to that particular invitation for me personally. I heard the invitation at a service at St. Thomas's Crooks. I didn't respond there and then. I went back to my room into Tapton Hall, and about 9 o'clock in the evening, prayed the prayer, asking Jesus to come into my life. So what about each and every one of us? Now, I probably will, to my dying days, still belong to the old-time religion, which is basically one where, personally, for me, I have to make that declaration of faith, ask Jesus into my life. That might be alien to some people here this morning, but that's the way I am, that's the way I was understood my faith, and that's the way that I will proclaim that particular faith. So the challenge is that if we hear the invite this morning, are we too fearful of saying yes to God? Do we think the secrets of our past or the shame of our present life is too much for Jesus to work on, to respond to? That's not the message of this particular passage, and that's not the message of the Christian gospel. The past is gone. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. All God wants is a yes. And so we can let him into our lives, and so we can experience his love and his healing power. And 1974, February the 10th, 9 o'clock in the evening, in my room at Tapton Hall, the residence, I experienced God's love and his healing power for the first time. May that be true for each and every one of you as well. So may God give you the grace never to sell yourself short, the grace to risk something big for something good, the grace to remember that the world is too dangerous for anything but truth and too small for anything but love. Amen.